Once again, I shall kill it till love. This love, when I wanna get another one, I go take and do it in I love. Waiting you love, oh. No be waiting I love, oh. Waiting I love, I go do what we done, I go. Go, no be vodka. Mr. Money Changer. But I know the ways that Mr.
You let a yum 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 yum. Naya pere, mat naya pese. You let a yum 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 yum. Naya pere, muna kapera, chora kakisa, oyari hele pere, balungna baire.
That dream of studying and working abroad has been made much accessible to everyone, including you. So worry less about how you're going to get there, because we always make it happen. This is Staffinders Ghana Limited. We offer a highly professional guidance and support system, both in your university and visa application process. Staffinders Ghana Limited is a highly trusted agency of the University of the West of Scotland, one of the largest modern universities offering a range of academic, social, and sporting facilities. You can apply for undergraduate, master's and PhD in business and creative industries, education, social sciences, computing, engineering, physical sciences, health, and life sciences. Come through Staffinders, and for your studies, you get yourself a laptop or a £500 gift voucher. Call on +233 598 4888 04. WhatsApp on +44 7404 711 049. Send us an email or visit our website for more information.
All right, welcome, viewers, to Political Justice. It's yet another Saturday afternoon. We are located out here in the diaspora. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time in the Boston area, 6 p.m. in the UK, 7 p.m. in Ghana, and then we bring you Political Justice, a discussion of the topical issues in our dear country, Ghana. Now, as usual, to help me do justice to these topics are my panelists. Today, we are privileged to have somebody who is very analytical when it comes to issues concerning data. And I'm happy to welcome Agyapadea, who is a data analyst based in Canada, who is here to help us do justice to one of the main topics of this afternoon. So Alfred, you're welcome.
Thanks, Agana. Happy to be here.
Yeah. And then my usual Zita Seshi, who is a sociologist, a women's rights advocate, children's rights advocate. So many accolades. Zita, you're welcome.
Thank you. And I like the fact that you added the women's rights advocate. I am the face of that.
And then finally, we have Ni Okine, who is an assistant professor of actuarial science at Appalachian State University in North Carolina. Ni, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Big Boss. How you doing?
Today you're very colorful. I like your colors.
I was gonna say that, Nee, you're in a good mood today, or you're just, summer ready.
I decided to it's been a while. Put this on. Let me put it on.
You look good. You look good.
He's doing summer. Anyway, so today we have three main topics that we're going to talk about, if time permits us. The first one is going to be about the issue of credit scoring that Dr. Baumia has brought to life again. He made certain comments with respect to the absence of a credit scoring system in Ghana and the ability of the ordinary person to access credit. And he doubled down in one of his campaign platforms, I think somewhere up north. So we have Alfred here who would take us through that subject matter. And then afterwards, we would move into, the political issues surrounding the ambulance case, the case involving the Honorable Minority Leader, Kesil Ato Forson, who was acquitted by the Appeals Court of Ghana. We will talk about that issue as well. We are not, none of us here is a lawyer, but we can definitely talk about the political aspects of the issue. And then finally, there's a document making the rounds in social media, all media platforms in Ghana, which is alleging a grand conspiracy to capture the state of Ghana by a certain group of people. It is called the Agyapadea document. An elaborate description of how a certain cohort of people from a certain part of the country are strategizing to capture the entire state as, if you like, their property. But we'll talk about that, whether it's a real or it's a fiction or whatever it may be. So without wasting time, let's go to the first issue. So I have a video around Baumia's comments, his most recent comment regarding access to credit in Ghana. And I'll play that. And afterwards, I've listened to the audio. It's very loaded. There are so many questions that can be asked of Baumia after hearing him say what he said there. And so the questions that would emerge would let Alfred appear, help us answer those questions. So I'll play the video first.
When we say we want to do something, they always say it is not possible. They always say it is not possible, but it is possible. When I said a few days ago that Ghanaians suffer a lot because everything we want to buy, we have to use cash to buy everything. In the developed countries like the UK, Germany, Japan, the United States, workers buy most things on credit. You buy a fridge, you buy a television, you buy a car, you buy a mobile phone, you pay small, small, small. But in Ghana, you have to pay it all. And so I said Ghana has reached a stage where we are going to introduce a credit scoring system that allows our workers to also pay small, small, small until they get it. When I said it, they couldn't understand. They don't understand some of these things. So we are going to do it. And you can buy your mobile phone and pay small, small, small until you finish paying. And we will be introducing the credit scoring system. But what I can assure you is that very soon, when the system starts working, you can be sure that the NDC will start to claim that it is they who introduced the system. They will claim that it is they who introduced the system. Just like they are claiming it is they who introduced free senior high school education. They will claim it is they who introduced the credit scoring system. But we are bringing this credit scoring system so that our people can get credit. for goods and pay small, small, small. Our tailors can get machines and pay small, small, small until everybody is satisfied. This is the new Ghana we are going to. We are building a credit system in Ghana. And everybody is going to enjoy this new credit system by the grace of God. Don't listen to the people who say it is not possible. It is possible. It is possible.
All right. So, Alfred, there are so many questions emerging from Baume's commentary. One of them is, do we not already have a credit scoring system in Ghana? The other question is the issue of access to credit. Is it because of the absence of a robust credit scoring system? And if we had a credit scoring system as we have in the West, is it going to be that easy to access credit? And I'm a social scientist. Especially in the U.S., issues about the inequities of the credit scoring system have arisen, and we can delve into that as well. But let's go to the very basic ones with respect to having a robust system. Based on the questions that I've just asked, if you can address it based on that would be great.
Okay, thank you. I have a slide presentation. I think it's uploading, but
okay.
Basically what I'm going to address those questions. And so I'll be talking about sort of like the current state of credit reporting or credit referencing or credit scoring, the term, the way they used it, the idea is that, you have a sense of somebody's risk credit profile, and how is that going to influence a lender's decision to either grant or not grant credit, right? So I'm going to give a sense of the current state of credit referencing, and then I will talk about what is new, is there any new thing that's being proposed? And then we can talk about the second question of, is it really credit? Is it really lack of a credit scoring system that's making it impossible for people to access credit in Ghana? So every credit scoring system or credit referencing system needs legislation. So Ghana has the Credit Reporting Act in 2007. So this legislation was passed, and that was supposed to, help with regulating and the whole idea of credit referencing. So Ghana currently has two main credit bureaus. There used to be three. One went out of business. So the first one, XDS Data Ghana, it has actually operated. It started operating, I think, even in 2004, even before the Credit Reporting Act came into it was passed. So it has been operating. And then Dun & Bradstreet. Dun & Bradstreet is actually, I think we're familiar with it in Canada. Dun & Bradstreet actually, I think that's like the business credit referencing and stuff. So it's an international organization. XDS also has branches in Nigeria and some other African countries as well. And like I said, the third bureau, Hudson's Data Solutions, they went out of business. So per the Credit Reporting Act, every lender, before they extend credit to somebody, they have to check the person's credit report from the credit bureaus, either XDS or Dun & Bradstreet. And then they are also supposed to report the activity. So somebody has this credit, somebody has delinquent, or somebody was this, they have to report all that activity to the credit bureaus. So this is something that has been going on for a while, right? It's something that has been existing. I think the key issue, as with any legislation in Ghana or in a lot of other places, is compliance, right? So the law might exist that you have to check credit. As long as you are extending credit to somebody, you have to check their credit profile with the credit bureaus and then that would help you establish credit worthiness and all of that, and help you set the interest rate and all that stuff. But compliance is an issue. They have not been doing it consistently, but it has been improving, and I'll show that on the next chart. And so that's the thing. So, and later when I'll talk about what what it is that the vice president is proposing, if this is a system that's already existed. And we've seen a lot of confusions. Like sometimes they talk about things like individualized credit scores. We don't have individualized credit scores and all of that. And we'll have that conversation. But really, what the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, what the Bank of Ghana is supposed to have oversight of that, and the Bank of Ghana provides a report called the Credit Report and Activity Report. And so in that, sometimes you will see that they will say, we sanction this rural bank because the rural bank did a report on some lending that it did to different customers, or we didn't. But per law, anybody that is extending credit to somebody in Ghana has to check their credit profile. So when you look at the credit inquiries over time, right, it is increasing, and you will see that like between 2019 and 2022, it's increased a lot. And part of this is because now even mobile money loans are getting captured under the credit referencing system, right? Because we know that given the level of informality in Ghana, not everybody is going to go to the formal, like the 23 banks or the 23 commercial banks to get loans. But people are borrowing through their mobile money, and we know that people borrow through mobile money, they don't pay up and all of that. And so that, now that has been added to the credit referencing database, you see that there's a spike in the amount of inquiries that's happening. So people are checking more now, right? People are making more inquiries with these databases. For example, in 2022, there was about 9 million inquiries that were made. So this is people searching, right? Searching to see, okay, Agyapadea has applied for a loan. If it's a formal loan or a mobile money loan, I want to check the database to make sure that Agyapadea doesn't have any other loans, doesn't have a bad credit history, so that I'll see whether I will actually extend credit to them. So that's one of the things. And then when you also look at the breakdown of the different institutions that are using the credit, of course, most of them will be the commercial banks because, more formal credit. But you could also see that even like there are retailers in there, there are credit unions in there, there are a group called like the money lenders, there are financial houses, savings and loans. So all these different institutions are conducting credit searches on people. Now in 2022, when they do these searches, 85% of the time they get a hit on somebody, right? So they do get a hit that, yes, we did find information about Agyapadea. That it could be that they just found demographic information about Agyapadea, or it could be that they actually found financial information about Agyapadea in the credit referencing database. So this is it. Then the other part that I wanted to, and I don't know why this is all scrambled together, but it's supposed to be under it. But anyways, and I think this is an important point that I want to make. So, and I will talk about the evolution of the whole Bawumia promise, because when he started, he had actually said that there was nothing, right? And there was no credit referencing, there was credit scoring, credit referencing system. And because of that, lenders see everybody the same way, and they think about them the same way, right? But in fact, the credit bureaus, as of 2022, they said they had records on 8.8 million, approximately 8.8 million borrowers. So when you look at that as a percentage of the adult population in Ghana, that's about 48% of the adult population. And then in 2023, the 2023 data comes from a statement that XES Ghana released in the discussion when the whole discussion of credit scoring came about. And I'll talk about that at some point too. But they also said that actually, as of 2023, they have 11 million unique borrowers in the database. So that's about 58% of the adult population.
So are these borrowers identifiable? Are these, for instance, if you're not formally employed and you access credit, are they able to capture a reasonable amount of your information said that if somebody is trying to trace that same person, it will be you?
Yeah. And that's why the hit percentage is important, right? Because you're saying that, and actually that hit percentage I suspect in 2023 will be higher, but in 2022 they said 85% of the time they get a hit on a person. So, and these are all very important for the conversation, because later we'll talk about the whole Ghana card angle and the fact that it's going to help identify unique borrowers and all of that. But right now, current state, right, the Ghana card is already captured, because as of July 1st, 2022, the Bank of Ghana gave a directive that all financial transactions must use the Ghana card. And as long as these financial transactions are using the Ghana card, the financial institutions are supposed to be reporting to the credit bureaus. So already people's Ghana card information is in the credit bureaus. And XDS Ghana, when they released their statement, they actually said that yeah, as of July 1st, they are getting Ghana card information. But Ghana card is not even the only other identifier. Before the Ghana card, they were also collecting other identifiers. And that is why they're able to tell that we have this many unique borrowers. Because in fact, actually, when you look at the total, there's like about 15 million records in there. But when you do a unique count, which is averaging about 2, so basically on average, people have about two products, credit product or something like that, right? It's basically what it is. So this is not something that does not exist. And that's the point I'm trying to make, right? I want us to be clear on that point, that as long as you have a system that has 11 million unique borrowers in there, that's not a system that does not exist. So when you look at the evolution of the Bawumia promise, when they started, he said nothing existed. And then later they said, oh, something exists, but it only covers 20% of the adult population. And that is not correct, right? Where did they get that 20% of the adult population from? Because if you have 8.8 million borrowers, that's not 20% of the adult population. If in 2023 you have 11 million of them, that's not 20% of the adult population, right? And so later, like as part of the discussion, and there's a whole procurement angle to this, right? And then we'll talk about that as well. But I just want us to lay the foundation.
Yeah. Okay, so but that's a significant number though, right? Because if you look at Ghana's economy and the current information is capturing up to 58% of adult borrowers or the adult population, it means that's impressive. That's like, you cannot claim such a system does not already exist.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, no, absolutely. And so and that's the thing. And later when you look at the discussion, you understand that the idea is that we want to say, oh, the system does not exist or the system is bad, so that we can bring in something new, right? And that's where the whole procurement angle comes in. And that's where it's an important piece of the conversation that we really need to have, because, I mean, we all know procurement price policy in Ghana, right? And I think it's just something that we have to really, we have to look at that. So there is a system in place. Now, maybe I'll address the other part. People have talked about the fact that, oh, they don't have credit scores, right? Credit score, which is, the 3-digit numeric score. We have an actuarial sciences here, but that is a statistical exercise, right? The whole idea of taking the credit report and reducing it to a credit score is a statistical exercise. So I don't know how that becomes a key policy for a campaign, right? If say for example, the credit bureau says, oh, we have the information, but somehow we cannot use that to calculate the credit score. That is not a key policy thing, right? And even the other part is that XDS Ghana, before this whole conversation started, XDS Ghana, when you go on their website, they were advertising credit scores on there. They said that they calculate individual credit scores. So when this whole conversation came up, we started pulling receipts from their website. And then the website went down. They took down the website for so many months. When the website came back, they had removed any reference to credit score on the website. So that and these are very important pieces of information that we really need to situate the conversation in, right? So we understand that maybe it's not really about a credit system, but maybe it's about trying to make somebody rich at the end of the day, right? And I'll talk about that. But so we have a system in place. You can pull my credit. If I want to buy a phone, if I want to get a mortgage, whatever, you can pull my credit and see it. So how come people are not getting things on credits in Ghana? And that's the part I want to talk about before I talk about the whole Bawumia thing. So, of course, the key thing is think of the credit score really impacts the additional, what is called the risk premium, right? So there's the base lending rate. Ghana's base lending rate, or if we use the monetary policy rate, is 29%. It is the 4th highest in the world. Like, if you take and this 4th highest in the world, really, it's just a lot of countries that are in trouble. Venezuela, Argentina, Turkey, those types of countries. Those are like the top 3. Ghana is next in the world, right? And so you see a lot of comparisons with countries like the US, the UK, Canada, but all those countries have policy rates that is 5% or less. Ghana has 29%. So of course, credit scoring is not the reason why people are not getting credits. Because at the end of the day, no matter how good your credit is, you're already starting up at 29%. And then there's the add-on, the additional risk premium, right? And I want to show I'll come back to this slide, but
Okay, Alfred, let me just interrupt here a little bit. For instance, Bawumia is talking about small borrowings, like buying a phone from, a cellular company and being able to pay in installments. Even if the lending rate was low, given our current structure, what exists today, is it possible that they could give out loans with some level of assurance that they can track the people who have taken up these phones on credit?
Absolutely, because now you have people's information, right? The credit referencing database has information. So I come up, I want a phone, you can look me up, and you are supposed to look me up. You shouldn't just give me the phone and go. Like per law, you are supposed to look me up and make sure that I have a good profile before you extend the credit to me. And then after that, you also have to report on my activity. Am I paying my loan on time? Am I, you have to report on that. So right now, currently, if that's something people want to do, and actually I understand that when the discussion came up, people were showing receipt that MTN and some other providers do some of that to an extent, right? Of course, it's not on a large scale, because think of it, the economy is very informal. Most people buy their phone from Circle, for example. Like, are you going to say Circle people should put people's credit and then offer it to them on credit? This is where the conversation gets interesting. And when they talk about this whole idea of the credit scoring has to be very comprehensive, right? The person in Kokomlemle or Adabrakada that is selling, are you going to give them an Excel spreadsheet and say that when this person comes and you give them things on credit, record it and report to the credit reporting database? Of course not. So this whole idea that the system has to be comprehensive, it doesn't work for us because of the nature of at the end of the day, you're just going to deal with a lot of the formal sector and the people that are taking money on the mobile money and all of that. The regular retailer that people will buy from, you're not going to give them Excel spreadsheet and say they should record credit activity and send it to the credit bureaus. That's not reasonable. They're not even going to do that, right? So that's the point. But really, right now, current state, if that's something people want to do, it is available. They can pull people's credit information from the credit bureaus and do that. So it doesn't need to have a whole idea of we need to connect them to the Ghana card. Maybe because I'm there, maybe I should just start talking about it, because the Ghana card is a great idea, right? The whole idea of the Ghana card is a great idea. But I think for some of us, some of the challenges that we find is the idea of trying to use it everywhere, right? And also making it sound that once the Ghana card enters the conversation, it solves all the structural issues that we have, right? Because fundamentally, right, the Ghana card is most Ghana cards right now that have been issued. It wasn't issued at birth. So whatever fundamental flaws that exist in existing IDs also exist in the Ghana card, because I can go and guarantee for somebody, right? Like as long as two people, or I think it's one person, or somebody can guarantee for you, even if you don't have birth set or whatever, somebody can guarantee for you. So as long as that is there, that is the flaw. It exists in any kind of ID system that we're going to introduce, right? But the other thing is that the Ghana card is already captured in the credit referencing bureaus right now, as of now, right? Because, and what I wanted to talk about with the XDS statement. So XDS came out to say that they don't produce credit scores, right? Even though they had advertised it on their website. So we interrogated that statement, right? Because we were like, well, for one thing, you were advertising on your website. So is it that were you lying to Ghanaians that you were offering credit scores? Or are you feeling some political pressure? And that is why you are releasing this statement. So we started interrogating that. And then the explanation they were giving, and it was funny because they said, so when Agyapadea came, when the bank asked for credit information on Agyapadea, we are sure that it's Aghyapadea's information that we are giving to the bank. So the bank can use that to make a credit decision. But somehow, we cannot use that information to calculate the credit score for Agyapadea unless we get a unique identifier. So logically, that does not add up, because you can tell the bank that Agyapadea is this person, but somehow you are telling me that you don't have a unique identifier for Agyapadea. How did you determine that it was Agyapadea?
Yeah.
Because for people that are familiar with data matches, you can use different variables to try to determine that this is this person, right? Like maybe you might have their passport number, or you might have and again, you see that they even in their statement, they were reporting that they have 11 million unique borrowers. How did they determine these were unique borrowers if they don't have a unique identifier for all these different? different people. So the statement itself didn't make sense in that regard, right? It's like, is it really true that you don't produce credit scores? Because again, like I said, the credit score, the whole idea of the credit score is a statistical exercise. The score itself, the numeric number. You use all the information, payment history, amount of credit they have, all those different, how long they've had credit, all those variables. And all that variable is on the credit report that you have. So what exactly is preventing you from calculating credit scores? I don't think it's a unique identifier.
Yeah. All right. So Alfred, but I want us to move along and talk about what is it that Bawumia is proposing to do different from what currently exists. So if he says he's going to implement a policy, and maybe this can lead us into your assertion of the politics of procurement.
So we can talk about that. So I think the main thing that he's talked about is the Ghana card, right? Because they're saying that the existing system, we don't have you don't have a unique identifier, so people can I guess duplicate IDs or all those kinds of things, right? And then the other part, of course, is they said it wasn't extensive enough. And that's the one I have proved. I've talked to you about that. It's not 20% of the adult population, right? That number, nobody has really explained where they got it from. That they said, it's not comprehensive enough, doesn't cover enough people, because that is not true based on the data that is. And that data that I was showing you was from the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana is the regulatory body that oversees the reporting system. So I don't think that is true. They don't have that. And then the whole idea of the Ghana card angle is what I'm talking about as well, is that the Bank of Ghana, as of July 1st, directed all financial transactions to use the Ghana card. And the credit bureaus confirmed that they have Ghana card data. So if they already have the Ghana card data, then what is the new thing again? So I don't see any new thing. The only thing that I see, and I think I put it here in bold because it's a key angle, is it provides fresh procurement gigs for people. So as this conversation started somewhere, and I think he made a promise in December or something like that. So that's when the conversation started. There was a new credit scoring system, that a new credit referencing company that has been formed, that is connected to the Blaze. They are politically exposed. So those people have formed a credit scoring system, a credit referencing system, and they are saying that they are going to start issuing credit. So it's between the Blaze family, between Hubtel and some other tech companies in Ghana that have formed this credit. But they are all basically connected to a lot of Bawumia's digitalization agenda, right? They are all in there. So for us, the thinking is that they just want to now bring in a new player, and instead of this new player coming to play on an even playing field, right? Because there are already two competitors that have been in the industry for a very long time. Dun & Bradstreet is an international organization. XDS has operated for close to 2 decades, so they're already there. So for them to now say we're going to bring in these guys, it sounds like it's an easy way to get them into the system and not make them compete with the others, right? And so we are going to introduce a new system. So that is I think that is a key angle. Like procurement part of it is a very key one that we really conversation really need to focus on.
But my question on that is, most of these credit scoring institutions, they are private and do not require any special government contract to operate. So why would you think that there's an angle here with respect to this new company that is formed by people who are politically connected?
But remember that, so the credit report itself, by law, everybody is entitled to 1 free copy a year. Otherwise, you have to pay for it, right? The financial institutions, the institutions that have to do the credit checks, right? And then if they have to calculate credit score for them, because the credit score will be an additional service, right? So there will be a fee attached to it. So that's where the money comes in, right? So you have to pay to actually get my credit score. You have to pay to make that inquiry. You have to pay for the service, right? So it's not a free service that you do. By legislation, every Ghanaian can get a free copy, like a self-report free copy. But otherwise, if the institutions are contacting these credit bureaus to get credits, to get credit information, they have to pay. And the credit bureaus offer a lot of other services to these institutions, right? So there's a lot of money to be made there in terms of like providing that service. So that's where it comes in. So instead of making it competitive, because you think of here, like even in Canada, there's Equifax, there's TransUnion. So depend on who wants to deal with who, right? But to make it that competitive, so that depend on what product XDS or Dun & Bradstreet is offering, they are now trying to bring in this new player that won't have to go through, because if this new player is already politically exposed and they are politically connected, right? So it wouldn't really be surprising that they would say every bank just take a credit report from, it's called my credit score GH, that's what it's called. Get your credit score from this place, and that's where they make the money, right? So that's where the procurement angle comes in.
Wow. Yeah, interesting. So do you have anything more, or you let me,
I think I've covered, I'm looking at my slides here, I think I've covered most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. But yeah, I think definitely the key part is that ID, whole idea of Ghana card, because I think once Ghana card comes in, people are usually really enchanted easily, right? But it's you have to really see through it and understand that if the system is already capturing Ghana card, then what is new again, right? What is this new thing that's been introduced? But don't forget the procurement angle as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So let me bring everyone in here, and then we can all talk about this, because and then we'll talk about some of these issues in the later topic regarding the Agyapadea document, because I was kind of skeptical with respect to the procurement angle, because I thought, for instance, if I'm interested in credit and the one that is trying to verify my credit would use whichever company that they want. And so, but in the case of Ghana, we've seen a trend where government organizations are compelled to go with a certain company. So in this case, might actually be the case that if government employees, let's say teachers, are going to access credit, government can actually require that they access the credit through a particular credit bureau. And I see your procurement angle here now. It's common practice. Somebody in another part of the world may think that this is a very ridiculous assertion we are making here, but it's very common. And we would see this conversation is going to come up in the process.
Yeah. Sorry, and maybe one more point, because just on that, because actually apparently ECG is offering people the ability to pay, to buy the credits, like the units on credit, right? And actually Hubtel is the service provider for ECG. They manage their app and stuff. And so apparently they're now offering people that, but you have to get your My Credit Score GH credit score first before you get that. So that's where the angle starts.
It's already started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Ghana politics is like a movie. If you were to tell somebody who is not familiar with the politics that goes on there, they may think that you're just you are sort of a creative person when it comes to writing fiction and telling a very compelling and great story. But yeah, Nee, I would like to bring you in on this. What's your take on this?
Yeah, first, I'm outside of the house, so it looks like my neighbor is mowing. So if you guys hear some mowing thing, that's why. But I would have to say, I was just shaking my head. Nodding. Sorry, and I agree with everything our brother presented. I think it's the truth. It's the what's going on. There's nothing new that Baumia is trying to offer. It's just that, as he said, it's a procurement angle, right? Baumia has the supporters that he has to also, take care of. So that's what I believe is going on here. And for me, I even argue that, if you look at system like US, where um, they don't really, there's the social security and all that, but they don't necessarily have one card, right? And so the idea of we need one Ghana card, and it solves all, as I first said, it doesn't solve the structural issues, right? And that's the main thing. We have everything we need right now if we really want to create a credit score. The system is there. In 2013, 2015, I started a company in Ghana, a data analytics company, and we were in a negotiation with previously Barclays. We were trying to create a credit score. We actually invested money, almost $10,000, to create the software, and COVID hit. Right, we got data from this credit bureau to create the model. So when I heard that, so I'm like, come on, I've even got data like buy data to do that. Of course, you don't know who it is, but the data is there. All you need is just the statistics and the model, the statistical model too, and it will spit out the credit score for you. So if you hear people, and that's what I don't like, right? We all want the country to move forward. You don't want to. Baumia is already struggling, and I think what he's trying to do is just lie his way through this thing. The system is already there. If we really want to create a credit score, it's not you coming to do anything. Ghana Card, yes, can help, but you can also improve the if you want to make the passport better, you can do that. If you want to make other cards better, you can do that. So the idea that all we need is a Ghana card to make the credit scoring system work, that is a lie, and we all know they are just playing politics. I mean, he can get procurement for his people, his supporters, but at the end of the day, we have to let him know that what he's saying is not the truth. The system already can produce the credit score. What is preventing a lot of people for buy on credit is that our economy is not that good. He mentioned the interest rate. It's too high. Even a retailer gives you something on credit, it's extremely high. People get loans in Ghana, so you can't tell me there's no people don't buy things on credit. I know a lot of the public service people, they do buy things like fridges and things on high purchase, right? So they buy it and they pay over time. So the idea that we don't have a credit system, we always have to buy things on cash is a lie, and you don't expect this from the vice president of Ghana. So the the idea is let's work and improve the economy, because you're looking at high unemployment rate, you're looking at high inflation, you're looking at high interest rates. Combine this, and if you even get a credit score and you get a credit, can you pay back if you don't have a job? Can you pay back if the interest rate is high? Can you pay back if the inflation is high? Because if the inflation is high, a lot of things are eating into your salary and stuff like that. So where do you get the money to pay back your loans? And that's exactly what is happening to Ghana right now, right? We are using most of our money to make to pay salaries and other things, and we cannot even pay our loans. And now they've downgraded us to junk status, right? We cannot pay our debt, and the managers of the economy that cannot pay their debt is promising a credit scoring system, which basically means that you have to be able to pay your debt. So even them, they are not setting good examples for us. And it's just that the economy, we need to do better with it, and that's all. And we should stop playing politics here and there, small politics. I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I'll end here.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you guys mentioned the informal credit system that exists, right? That even people go to Circle to buy phones on credit. And for me, my thing is, we've always had this credit system going on, a very communal, compassionate type of credit system.
Even my mom bought things on credit. My mom bought things. I'm not cutting you. My mom got things on credit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, my mom is a teacher, was a teacher. She's retired now, but throughout her teaching life, she would buy stuff and then they would take from her salary. There was always some credit system going on. But beyond that, the women that worked in the informal sector or even, sold in the marketplaces and places like that had their own credit system running, a very communal based, compassionate system, not the cutthroat, neoliberal type of credit system that exists in the West. If you want the American cutthroat type of credit system, you have to have the economy to back it, where there are these faceless corporations that are literally harassing people for money that they gave to people that they knew didn't have the money to pay in the first place. So they have kept these people in this perpetual state of poverty by giving and taking. So our economies haven't developed to that point yet. So I don't get the point in Baumia trying to repackage something that already exists as its own and try to escalate it in a way that may not necessarily help us as Ghanaians. I mean, so Zita, I don't know if you want to, I mean, you're a sociologist. Give us some, sociological dimension of this particular issue.
Oh, and I agree with you with the informal sector. Like my mom, even though my father was a successful businessman, he owned a lottery. So, some of us are beneficiaries of taking, having people stick the lotto and never win. So we get to have a good life. But my mom used to trade, and I remember she used to trade with some of her people were in the northern region, and so she used to trade in beans, maize, corn, the big bags. So she would deliver it, and her friends who owned chop bars would not come and take the maize for them to cook their banku and all that from her on credit. And she will also deal with, she used to call them alaji. So she would call alaji, are you coming to Agbogbloshie? Are you bringing the stuff? And it's okay, I have money for only 20 bucks bags. So 20 big sacks, maybe 5 maize, 10 granite, and stuff like that. And so she used to buy it in bulk and then, also give it on credit to her friends who run the chop bars. And so a credit system really does exist for the informal sector. Even my mother's friends, they used to have, oh, we don't contribute, oh, borrow me, I'll use it for the business. And then in the next month, it goes on to the next person. And we've all seen that. My question to Alfred is and that of course addresses our informal needs. It is interesting that Baumia, as a learned colleague, is just copy and pasting policies from the West without accounting for systemic issues, without accounting for the kind of economy that we have. I always say Ghana, we are not. They said in the West we are in a what, a knowledge economy, and the service, we are not yet there. Ghana and most Africa, we are still very primary. Agriculture is at the center of how we move, and there's a lot of informal structures in place. My question to Alfred is regarding his presentation. Excellent points made. I want him to clarify. So what about the issue of the people who kind of defaulted on paying their Momo loans? Because when the the Ghana card was introduced, some people refused to register so they could default on some Momo loans, because then their identity will not be captured. So, and I know you do mention voters. I even feel like the voters register card is like, it's more widespread nationally than the Ghana card. So my question is to you is, how does the system account for those challenges? Because I remember on social media, there was the buzz about people saying that main register, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to pay, I'm not going to get my Ghana card. So automatically, they will not be able to track me to kind of hunt me down and get their money. So if you could explain that part for me, I would appreciate it.
Sure. And I think one point that I should make also is, it's possible a lot of people in Ghana don't actually know about the existence of the credit scoring. Even people that go to get bank loans from banks and all of that, they probably don't know. Like you probably sign a lot of consent things, right? And then they say, oh, probably check. The consent might say they check your credit, right? But so most people, so it wasn't surprising that when the conversation started and Baumia said, oh, there's no credit scoring, some people were agreeing, right? Because the point is that these are all things that are happening in the background. Right, and I'll answer your question, but I just wanted to give another statistics. The like I said, everybody's entitled to they can request for their credit report once a year. In 2022, only 50 people requested for it in the whole of Ghana. Right, so that should give you an idea of the level of awareness of the system. Now, that doesn't mean the system does not exist. The fact that people are not.
The truth is, even if somebody knows of the existence of this credit score, what will they be requesting it for?
Exactly. Because what other sector? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's the other thing. But the whole idea of the Momo people. So if that impact the system, because the Momo carry the people like the MTNs, those ones that are giving out the loans, they are not tracking. They are not sending the information to the credit bureaus. Right, because if you're not reporting to the credit bureaus, and that's one of the main issues that we have, is that they're not compliant, right? So if you don't comply, then of course people can game the system, right? People can take a loan here and then want to try to use a different ID and all of that. That's where it gets tricky. But the other thing to think about though is that credit scoring and the models, one of the key variables in there is about history, either payment history or the length, how long you've had credit for, right? So really trying to game the system doesn't really help you if that makes sense. Because if you say, okay, I have one ID here, I'm going to change it. Now you are starting afresh, right? So you basically have nothing, right? There's no history for you or nothing for your score to go high up so that you become more credit worthy or that stuff. So even the whole idea of like, people will use double ID doesn't actually even help anybody, right? Because you really need to build the history. You really need the history. So that's the other point that I wanted to make. But the Momo thing is, and people have talked about it, or people will take loan and then they will just throw away the SIM card and all of that. So it is up to the credit bureaus it's up to the so-called data providers, like the financial institutions, the mobile money outlets. They have to report that to the credit bureaus. So if I took a loan, you have to report my information to them, right? So that next time when I show up again, like based on the different IDs. And the other part is that the credit reporting form actually has multiple ID requirements, right? So it's not just it's not just one ID, right? Passport can be in there, driver's license can be there. And when he was talking, he mentioned the whole idea of even in the West, like it's not just one ID, because you could take your driver's license and then it will try to ask you some verification question and then make sure that it is you and then pull some information on you, right? And say that, okay, this is you. So it's not and that's the same idea that they set up the system. But Ghana, because because of the whole idea of procurement again, and I don't know how many people know this, and I've tried to talk about this on social media, but every time the Ghana card is used for verification, there is a charge that is paid to the service provider, right? So so Ghana technically doesn't really own the Ghana card. The Ghana card is owned by a group called Margins, right? They do the ID system. So every time the Ghana card is used for verification, the government agency or the private sector that is doing that has to pay for verification services. So when you hear about this whole idea of we have to use the Ghana card everywhere, then you have to think about it. So remember, like recently, for example, they tried to use it in the justice system. They said before lawyers can access case files, they have to show their Ghana card. So every time they do that, the system has to pay money to the service provider. But in what world does it make sense that lawyers need to show Ghana card to access case files?
Who is the service provider?
Margins. It's called they're called Margins Group. If you look at Margins Group, they are the service provider. So the Ghana card is it's supposed to be a public-private partnership between the government of Ghana and Margins, but it's more skewed towards the private sector. The private sector basically control everything, right? So you see the Electoral Commission pushing to use the Ghana card.
Yeah.
Every time the Electoral Commission uses the Ghana card to verify somebody, uses their technology, the Electoral Commission has to pay money to them. All this linking of data that is happening, NHIA, all those ones, Ghana Revenue Authority, all of that, there's a charge. So it's not free, right? So when people talk about using and this is the point I say, the Ghana card is good, but because it is Ghana, the procurement angle and the fact that we need to make money always dominates. And so I have a phrase I say that the soundness of policy is really if it generates fresh procurement gigs, right? Because that's basically what it is. And
follow the procurement.
Absolutely.
Follow the procurement.
Absolutely. And so that's where I always say, you can't use this, they say Ghana card and then they talk about it very nicely. The Ghana card team has a whole PR team that's supposed to be doing all of this, right? Because it's a good thing, like to have one ID. But you think of all of us, like even in the developed world, they don't have one ID, right? Like you think that's your passport. This is why you say, even the passport is not good. The Electoral Commission will make references to, and I'm sorry, I'm digressing, but I just wanted to make sure that.
But it's the database that is important. It's not about the ID that you're using, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know why they are making it a big deal about the ID instead of a database that all these organizations or institutions that are trying to access anybody's information can tap into. Yeah. So that if I issue my ID card, it could be the voter ID card or it could be my passport. Once they key in my core information like my name and my date of birth, it should be able to tap that common database and pull that information so that you don't have to tie people to one particular card.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so this whole thing about Ghana card, as you said, there's some procurement angle to it. And I think that's always supposed to be the main analysis that we do when we look at these things, because where is the procurement angle to this thing? And that would answer some of the absurd questions related to the implementation of policy. You can see a policy and you don't understand why it will be implemented the way it has been.
Look at the
And then you come to realize that there's some,
yeah. Because, and I think that's the other, because the other thing is that the Ghana card, like the registration with the Ghana card, is not different from any other ID system that we have, right? Because and that was when I was making the point that because we are doing this midlife, like we're not doing a lot of this at birth, right? So at birth, like this person is just assigned as ID, but because we are doing a lot of this, so that for example, when the Electoral Commission says, we can't let people guarantee for people to vote, but we should be using their Ghana card. It's like, well, you could actually guarantee for me to get a Ghana card. Okay, so why can't I use the same guarantor system to guarantee for a voters registered ID? Then you think about the procurement, because if they use the Ghana card, there's money that has to be paid. Somebody is going to get money from that, right? And because they are doing the guarantor system is too boring, like there's no money in there. So that's where so always look at the procurement angle, and a lot of these things would make sense.
Okay. All right.
But then, Alfred talks about the beating of the system affects the individual. It does not, because like Agana said, what are you getting the credit for? So I hear you, but that also speaks to our national attitude as a people, because if people, they are not reporting, like you're saying that these lenders are not reporting this information to the financial institutions or whoever stores data on credit. And so if I get Momo, let's say I get 20,000 Ghana cedis on a Momo loan, and now I don't have a Ghana card, and I decide to change and get another one. Like you said, only 50 people requested for a credit score in the year 2022. Yeah. So imagine that. Yeah. So because the system is not there, they're not reporting, and people are not even aware that they have a history they're building. They go else, they get their family member to register a card for them, and they take another loan.
No, I think what Alfred was talking about is when you actually request for your credit report to know where your credit score is.
Right, the self-reports.
The self-reports. So for instance, now these days, we have apps that I can look up, or even your credit card comes with a credit score. So it is that report. I mean, before the apps with the credit card thing, you could actually access your credit report. So it's that information that Alfred is talking about. You just want to know where your credit worthiness is, so to speak, right?
And I'm saying that at the end of the day, even knowing doesn't help in terms of Ghana, the economy, and the system.
Yeah, it doesn't help anything.
Right. So I'm more in terms of the general person who is defaulting on loans and defaulting on Momo loans and just finding new identity. It's a loophole in the system. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because the reporting is not done, and so people are beating the system. Because at the end of the day, like if honestly, if Alfred did not make this presentation today, I would not know that we currently have this kind of semi-robust system in Ghana where you can actually request for your credit score and credit worthiness. So these are just things for us to consider on how to tighten the rules and make sure that all these how do you call them, they are mobile networks who offer these financial are reporting, so people are not beating the system. And I feel like these are the discussions we need to be having to make the system better, so people understand that if you take 20,000 cedis from mobile money and you decide to discard your SIM card just to default a loan, and you go and use a different identity to purchase a different SIM card from a different network, they will be able to tie it back to you that you are the same person, and that affects your ability to get a new number and even subsequently get any form of mobile money loan in the future. So these are the things that I'm expecting Baumia or any political aspirants to be talking about, how to tighten the system, enforce the laws, and ensure that MT and all these people are reporting, and then we are creating this database on, people, so that this whole thing of absconding the system and defaulting on loans is curbed. And then when we build it, then we can have this more of this whole centralized idea that Baumia has in mind. But as it is now, people are beating the system and they are getting away with it. Take the loan, change your SIM card, get a new number, and you're gone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say that no matter what, right? Our system is never going to be as comprehensive as is in the West, and that's something that people really need to understand, right? Because when earlier we were talking about, there's a lot of informal loan arrangement that happens and all of that. That is not going to end up in the credit scoring system. That is never going to end up in the credit referencing system. That's why I was making the example of, I was joking partly, but making the example of somebody selling in Makola or somewhere. You're not going to give them a reporting form and say every time you give something to somebody on credit. But there's a lot of lending that is happening in that sector, right? There's a lot that's happening there. But just because of the reporting requirements of it and all of that, like, how are you going to get them to say, okay, start reporting on this? Every time this person, you say they have to pay monthly. If they miss the payment, report on it, right? It's at the end of the day, no matter what, it's really going to be the more formal type of lending system that is going to be captured. That's just our nature. That's just by virtue of the nature of our economy. Like, unless we become more and more formalized, that's when we will see this whole idea of a comprehensive credit scoring system. So no matter what, like, it's going to still be missing out. That doesn't mean that bringing the Ghana card is magically going to change that, because it's not going to change that. Because I can go to the market and I can swipe my Ghana. Maybe you can give me a POS system or something that will capture my Ghana card information. But it doesn't mean that system is automatically going to generate a report and send it to them. Somebody still has to do that. Somebody has to get somebody that's going to be reporting that. Are they going to do that? The market woman just want to sell their stuff. They're not going to focus on doing that. So no matter what, it's just by virtue of economy and our structure. It's not going to be as comprehensive as it would be here, because retailers are a key part of it. Retailers do offer a lot of credit, and so they should really also be capturing that information. So yeah, you go to a store, the store give you a credit card, their information, they'll be reporting formally to the credit bureaus here. But of course, in Ghana, that's not going to happen. So we just have to accept that reality too, right? It's just the nature of how things are going to work there.
And I have two questions. So I actually feel the way we are kind of implementing this Ghana card thing, there's a security issue with it, right? Because you look at, I don't remember the number of times I hold my social security card here. I don't hold it. I only see it on my tax documents, on my dealing with banks sometimes, right? But here you're asking people to hold this card, which basically is like, it opens doors to a lot of their life, right? Have this card everywhere you go, and all I see is like a serious security issue here. Here, what I do have a lot is my driver's license, and through that, I can if I go to hospital, I have my driver's license. They have information. They can have access to other information like my social security and all that. So sometimes I'm like, are we even doing it right? Is there not a security issue here that we want the Ghana card to be front and center of everything? If we really think that number is really important, why are we not trying to hide it a little bit and forcing everybody to hold your Ghana card when you're going to the hospital, hold your Ghana card, basically do everything? And I have concerns about that. I don't know what you think about that, Alfred. And the second one is, are we even I know our system have to improve. So yes, Ghana card is offering something, right? But last time in 2021, I think I mentioned this here. I went to a bank to open a bank account when I was in Ghana, and they asked me to drop my house address from the junction to my house, and I'm like, why are we doing this in 2021? If the Ghana card is really supposed to do what it's supposed to do, why are you asking me to draw the direction, right? So is the, I guess, the identification or what the Ghana card is supposed to do, is it even doing it? And so those are the questions I have.
I think a key issue that I find in Ghana and a lot of other African countries is, well, actually been here too, is, we have all these initiatives, but we barely evaluate them for impact, right? We barely talk about the impact of it. So example, like we force people to go and re-register their SIM cards with Ghana card because we said people are, frauding, there's Momo fraud and all of that. But actually, has there been an impact? Has there been a reduction in Momo fraud since we did that? You read the news and you still hear stuff. There's a lot of stories about Momo fraud, but we said we've linked the Ghana card and we can actually identify people. So if we can do that, why do we still have that? And so that's one of the things. So just to answer the first question about the security, I think the security match, and I think Agana and I we chatted briefly on it on one of our WhatsApp pages. I think that it's really secondary, right, in the issue, in the whole scope of things. Like, because I agree with you. Like, it should be like, it shouldn't, like, for example, like my SIM number here in Canada. Like, I don't just show it. Like, I just don't have a SIM card. I just everywhere I take it, and then because I want them to link it, right? But then because we just want to use the Ghana card as the only thing, and we want to, of course, I don't forget the procurement angle, of course, very important. But because we want to use it as much as possible, so now we're even saying that all the other ID systems are bad. So now you can't even take your passport anywhere, or except to travel with it, but you can't really take it anywhere, right? Even your driver's license, they're trying to tell you your driver's license is not good. Now the GRA did a 10 tax identification number, and now they say, oh yeah, they're going to discard all of it and use a Ghana card as a tax identifier. But I think in my mind, it should be something that's happening in the back end. That in the back end, if I present my driver's license, it's already connected to my Ghana card. So my Ghana card number is not known, but I know my driver's license number. Nobody's going to do anything with my driver's license number. Yeah. But here I have this number that is connected to multiple systems, and on the front end, that's what everybody is seeing, right? That's not secure enough. But I don't think people are really thinking about that angle, because if you go and bring up that angle, you're book long, right? Because it's not something that people are really thinking about, but they should. All these things should be things that are happening in the background, right? My SIN number, like right now, if they ask me my SIN number, I can tell it, but it will be connected to different things. But I'm not seeing that connection, right? Because I don't need to display my SIN number. But here is the case: bring your Ghana card everywhere. So you're going to the bank, you have to show your Ghana card. Why can't you show your driver's license to the bank, to the person in the bank? Because in the back end, DVLA data is connected to NIA data, right? But again, it comes back to the more Ghana cards we swipe, the more money we generate, and that's what we're trying to do. That's really the business model. The Ghana card project has a revenue target of $1.2 billion over 15 years, right? That is the PPP arrangement that we have with the margins, and so the idea is that we have to use it more. We have to use it more. So the security point, I think it's secondary, really. And then the whole idea of the house address, like, we've heard about, and when the politicians, when they talk about the achievements, right, they say, oh yeah, we have issued Ghana cards. And then they might say some big things that, it is helping fight corruption. Exactly how is it helping fight corruption? Because we're hearing issues of corruption every day, right? So what is changing really? The house address thing that they say, draw your direction. They did a GPS, the Ghana Post GPS or whatever they called it. Where is it now? Like, houses in Ghana have these numbers attached to them.
When I was doing the Ghana card, I had to download this app, do my thing, use it for Ghana card. When I went to the bank, they still asked me to draw. Like,
because how many people are actually using it? And that's it. That's where it comes down to, right? Because and the Ghana Post GPS, the whole thing, because people basically just use Google and then did some things and then sold it to Ghana. But it's like, why would you need a procurement system if Google already exists?
Procurement.
Exactly. So that's where it's like. But again, nobody's now talking about Baumiawo lists as an achievement. Oh yeah, we did Ghana Post GPS. Okay, what was the impact of that? Because now still people, when I go, I don't think any I don't even know how many people actually downloading that GPS app, because they only downloaded it as a requirement to get the thing, and then that was it. How many app developers in Ghana right now are using this in the application for location? They all just use Google, because Google is tried and tested. Yeah. Why would they go to
compete with Google? Come on.
So that's we do all these. We talk about it. A lot of money is spent on all these initiatives, but then the evaluation for impact is not there. The impacts that are talked about, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody say, "Oh yeah, Ghana card is good," and I'm not. And I'm a data scientist. I like data. I like. So I think it's a good thing. But all these things that have been talked about, what are the implications of it? Are we actually are we actually seeing the benefits of it, or we just want to just shout Ghana card, Ghana card, Ghana card, and Ghana card everywhere, right? So that's where that's the missing link. Always, that's always the missing link.
Yeah, Alfred, I think you actually, bypassed another major issue in going into the impact assessment. Look, in many instances, there are no justificatory arguments being made for any policy issue. So, for instance, even laws, right? The manner in which our system is structured, there have to be justificatory arguments that support the policy proposal. But you look at some of these policy issues, and then you try to understand what is the justification, and then you're not seeing the arguments that have been made with regard to the necessity or the compelling arguments that have been made for such a policy, right? And I think we need to make sure that when there's a proposed policy, these arguments have to be made, right? People who have the requisite knowledge concerning these issues really have to, go back and forth, and we examine the pros and cons before we proceed. But as I said, at the back end, or the ultimate goal is always for procurement purposes. So we ignore all these arguments, because you look at the manner in which the Ghana card is being implemented, and we talked about how in other places there are multiple ID cards and they just tap into the same system. Why can't we use a similar strategy, but insist that we have to use one card? And that's because nobody really interrogated the arguments, right? And you see this even in laws that we implement. There are no justificatory arguments. They take them wholesale from another part of the world and implement them in our case. Baumia is being sleek in this particular instance, trying to repackage something that already exists as something that is novel, and then he is the originator of that policy. Now, and he's actually even taking a swipe at the NDC and saying that, when they implement it, they shouldn't come back later on and say they were the first to implement it. When you are engaging in an insincere act by talking about something that already exists. If you talk about it sincerely and say that we want to improve upon it by, for instance, introducing legislation that would compel these reporting or these financial institutions to report to make the system more robust. I mean, I think you would be able to convince people like us, but if you come and try to repackage something that already exists as yours, come on, it's kind of upsetting, But again, yes, yeah.
I have one last question to Alfred.
Yeah.
So with the margins thing, is it like what they did with what Mahama did with the, how do you call it, the port, where they have to operate it for build, they have a term for it, build, operate, and something, return it to the government after some years? Is it that way, or the margins group have authority over it for forever? These people, these NP people, and forever. We saw the Agyapadea thing, and they are trying to get good royalties forever. So I don't know if you have information on this, the arrangement.
I think that the PPP is DBOT, design, build, operate, and transfer, right? So that's the model. But how it's playing out in reality, though, I think is different, right? Because government is still investing in it. NIA staff, like government has the staff and all of that, right? So recently, NIA staff were on strike. They said they were threatening strike and all of that because their condition of service is not good. I don't think margin employees are threatening that, right? So it's just the modality of it, how it's a DBOT, but how it was implemented. It's more like, they just control everything basically.
I see. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's. I mean, we could talk about this all day, but let's move into the ambulance case, right? This also had to do with procurement. Keselatu Forson was hauled before the court. I think this was in 2021, right? That he had caused financial loss to the state, and he has been in court, since then, in and out. And then his lawyers appealed to the appeal court that, in fact, there was no justiciable case against him, and that the case that had been brought before the court by the Attorney General didn't really have any, there was really no case to be made against the accused, and that the accused being asked to open his defense was basically unnecessary. Open defense to what? What is the accusation? Basically, that was the question. And so the appeals court dismissed the case on grounds that there was no case to be to be judged, if you like, so to speak, right? So there's Mahama here, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. He was interviewed regarding the case, and then he made some pronouncements regarding the political nature of the trial. And so let's listen to him, and then we'll delve into the political issues surrounding these types of cases, right?
That it shows the vindication that he's innocent. We believe that this prosecution should never have taken place. Indeed, it came as a surprise because I had quite forgotten about the appeal. This appeal was made quite a long time ago when they filed a no-case petition before the court, and the High Court, rejected it, and so they went up to appeal. So apparently it's been before the appeal court for quite a long time. So it came as quite a pleasant surprise. But it shows that we still have justice in this country, and that we can work to make the judiciary what we want it to be.
Well, we have seen the AG really indicate that this is a perversion of justice in the interest of public accountability. One, if you were his appointer, what would you have advised him to do at this stage?
Well, I think that this Attorney General has been discredited enough. Anywhere in the world, with the things we've seen and the coaching of witnesses and discussion with witnesses, this prosecution would have been struck out as malicious prosecution. I believe this prosecution is malicious. He is not as, robust and energetic in pursuing cases that are occurring. Even just as we're talking, there's an ambulance case involving this present administration, which is hugely larger than what he's prosecuting, and yet he has no interest in that. He is like a legal representative of the MPP party, over enthusiastic in pursuing political opponents. I've said that when we come, it will be the reverse. We will pursue accountability for the regime that has gone out. But at the same time, if any of our people are involved in the same things that have happened for which we're prosecuting the opposition, we would, the previous government would prosecute them too. And so I think that the Attorney General is also the Minister of Justice. He forgets that. He thinks that he's just the Attorney General. The Minister of Justice is supposed to ensure fairness. Anywhere else in this world, this case would have been, and he would never even have come to court, not to talk about talking with witnesses, having conversations with witnesses, and trying to tell them what to do. Yeah, this case should have truncated long ago.
The critics of yourself and the NDC say that you have suddenly found your voice in reposing some sort of confidence in the judiciary. What's your reaction to this as well?
No, not that we've suddenly found our voice. I do think that despite the issues we have with the judiciary, there are judges who are fair-minded. We're not talking about all judges. In some cases, we criticize judgments. I mean, for instance, to say that your birth certificate cannot be a proof of your identity as a citizen, I don't agree with that judgment. But they pronounce it, and we've abided by it. We sent an election petition, we're thrown out. I said, I respect the judgment of the courts. So we've always respected the judgment of the courts. As president, I can say that I never, ever once interfered in the administration of justice.
So was this case, was this a political witch hunt? Because if you look at when the case was brought, this was in 2021. Now, this issue happened in 2014. The MPP came into power in 2017. They had a whole term, and then it took the second term of the administration to start this case against Forson. So again, I mean, I we understand the law, but we're not lawyers particularly. So I just was interested in the political dimensions of the case, its appearance, and all the issues that came along with the conduct of the Attorney General. What is your judgment with respect to the way this case went down, whether there were legal merits or not?
Yeah, for me, I I don't like corrupt politicians, right? So, and it doesn't matter which side you are on. If you are wrong, you need to be dealt with. So, but we all do want the right thing to be done, right? And what we wanted to see is that this government is actually taking on, I mean, the bad guys in the other government. But when I had the tape that came out, the attorney general was trying to tell this Jackpot guy to not come to delay the his whatever his court appearance and claim that he's sick. I'm like, come on, you're trying to prosecute somebody who is like a minority leader. You have to make sure you go by the book, right? So right from there, I was like, something is not right here. And that actually piqued my interest in the case because I'm like, if you are wrong, we need to deal with you. So let the courts deal with whoever. It will NDC MPP, I don't care. But after that, I'm like, okay, let me start getting into the case. I started listening to people, and it was like there were, and even after the verdict, I follow one Professor Justice Sram on Twitter.
Just a side, yes.
Yeah, he broke it down, and I'm like, yeah, this. And also, there was a video by Kennedy Japan who was trying to explain that he doesn't think that that case should even go to court because basically it's like there are two main issues here. That's the what's his name, the accused, the NDC guy.
Forson.
That's Forson has a authorization to issue the letter of credit, and I'm like, Forson is deputy minister. Are you trying to tell me the minister did not give him authority to sign a letter like that? I'm like, why do you even want to put your case around something like this? So all they have to do is call the minister and let the minister verify. And I'm like, you could even have done this before going to court. Yeah. So why do you need to go to court before you call the minister to come and ask him whether he gave the authority? I'm like, really? Is that what you are doing in a case like this, right? And the second point was like whether a letter of credit was actual payment. A letter of credit was just a guarantee. The making it an actual payment has to go through a lot of steps, right? People have to verify whether certain conditions have been met. So if the payment has gone through, whoever verified and said that the conditions has gone through is the person who actually made that authorization at that point, right? Because the deputy minister has actually, okay, we've had this letter of credit, but somebody in the Atlantis health ministry will have to do their job to say, okay, these conditions are actually met. Okay, now release the funds. So, and I'm like, even me and law person, I'm like, yeah, this thing does not make like it's clear to me. So I don't know why they went to court. I don't know. It was a political angle they are trying to. I don't know what happened because when I look at it, I'm like, this thing does not look like a case that even had to get to that point. And even if you have someone like Ken explaining and saying, I don't think this thing should go to court. That was all I needed to know, that this was, and for me, I was very disappointed because I don't want all prosecution to feel like it's a witch hunt. I want the bad guys to actually be dealt with, right? And that is what I found disappointing with this case. And if under Muhammad's government, so even some of his people went to jail, right? And that is what I want to see. If the politician, go wrong, they should be jailed or they should be made to pay back the money and all that. I don't want all this. just trying to use state resources just for political points, and that's what I don't like about it.
Okay. All right. So, for instance, in the U.S., my understanding is that federal prosecutors secure a 99.5% rate of conviction. If they issue an indictment and the case goes to trial, the success rate is it's like, what it means is that if you're indicted, then you are almost going to be convicted, right? You should know that an indictment means you've been convicted, basically. So, I mean, how can a whole attorney general of a country bring a case against a key member of the opposition party without having his ducks in the row? Do we have an incompetent attorney general, or he was trusting that no matter how bad his case was, these judges are going to be politically motivated to rule in his favor? Is that the angle? I mean, I really cannot make sense of this case, to be honest with you. So, Alfred, I don't know what your take is on this.
Yeah, I mean, when you read some of the parts of the judgment, right? I think it's really clear that the government's case was really weak, right? Like the government didn't have a good case against.
And why go to trial if you know you have a case? What thread are you hanging on?
And so that's where maybe the political angle comes in, right? Because perhaps there's some in civil society that have said that this is a way to just kind of gag the minority leader at the point where he was criticizing a lot of government policies and exposing certain things about the e-levy and all those other stuff, right? And so that's the argument that some have made. I think that I'm not a lawyer too, so I can't. But I would say that like the appeal court have found it that it's not something that was the government didn't have a case, and so that was not something that they needed to really pursue. Part of what I don't get though is that the company in question, Blue Sea, apparently had offered to for Ghana to, if you don't like the ambulance, we'll give you a refund. They offered to do refund, and so I think if the whole idea was in state interest, right, and to make sure that the state doesn't lose money, because this was a financial loss thing. Yeah. So I would expect that maybe the attorney general, if the intent was to recover the costs, right, then really that deal should have been talked about. But it appears that the attorney general didn't really make a decision on that, like in terms of accepting the proposition by Blue Sea. Which was to me, that was surprising, because I'm thinking about the fact that we need money, right? And we say we've lost some money somewhere. So if we're really trying to recover the money as one of the key reasons we are prosecuting this case, especially knowing that the case was weak, right? Because it really there's people in the Ministry of Health that didn't really do their work, right? Like all the conditions in terms of like inspecting, making sure the ambulances were fit for purpose, all the due diligence that was supposed to be done. It sounds like those were not done, like just look from reading the case, right? And so because those were not done, now you're going to prosecute somebody because they provided a guarantee for the things to be. But there were some conditions that needed to be met, and those conditions were not met because people in charge didn't do their work, right? So to me, I think that there are other people that should be prosecuted, and I think it's we still have these vans or whatever. I don't even know what to call them, because they're not really ambulances. They're sitting somewhere in Ghana, right? They are there. We're not using them, and we've pumped money into it. We also didn't return them and get refund as offered. So really, what are we going for here, right? And that's where some people go with the angle of it is a political persecution. We're just trying to use this as a way of silencing this minority leader, because he's exposing all these things and talking about all these things in terms of policy and all of that. But I think in all, I cannot disagree with the judges. But one point I also want to make, because I've seen people trying to say that if this has happened, then it means that the courts are not biased or anything. And I think this might be something where it's like we really need to look at the data, right? Like people that are alleging biases for the court, and like the court doesn't like this group of people and all of that. To me, I don't think this one case changes that perception. I don't hold. I should clarify. I don't hold that perception.
But I just sometimes if somebody wants you to be biased in their favor, I mean, they have to give you something to work with. You get what I mean? Some excuse to be able to, pass some favorable judgment. But in this particular instance, look, I never followed the case. I'm usually interested in more constitutional. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm more interested in like systemic issues. And so when it comes to constitutional judgments and stuff like that, I kind of have interest. But when it comes to criminal cases, criminal trials, no, it's not really things that are. So knowing how an attorney general is supposed to be competent at his work, I didn't really follow the case. But upon seeing the judgment and seeing how weak the case was, even from a layman's point of view, that argument that the courts cannot be described as biased at this point is not really valid, because if your case is so bad that even your own brother cannot help you, look, in that instance, there's nothing you can do. You understand? So, and it looks like this was the case. But again, I'm not imputing that the courts are biased, but there have been instances where we've suspected bias, and I think that this does not all of a sudden nullify those concerns about the court system.
Absolutely. And I think I just want to look, because I was looking at the judgment, and there was one thing one of the judges said in their judgment, said that the Ministry of Health is really the applicant and the beneficiary of the LC, right, the letter of credit. And so it was a duty of the Ministry of Health to basically do all the necessary pre-shipment inspections to make sure that the ambulances were fit for purpose. So it was that. I don't think the AG would have expected that Arthur Forson, the Deputy Finance Minister, would be the one that's doing that inspection.
Go down there, inspect.
And even like they were saying that Big C said that if the Ministry of Health had actually done those pre-shipment inspections, they would have found some of the issues, right? They would have found the issues because, again, these were all conditions that were set, right? Those conditions needed to be satisfied. So I don't think the expectation was that the Minister of Health, the Deputy Minister of Health, as Deputy Minister of Finance would do that, right? So there was negligence in a lot of places, but I feel like we're not going after the right people, basically, right? I think there were people that failed to do their job in the process, and those people should have been prosecuted. We should have gone after those people. But most importantly, we should have cut our losses. Like, we should have recovered what we could, right? Because we have these ambulances sitting there, we're not using them. We have our money stuck in there, and then they offered for us to because Big C said they don't want their name in. They didn't want their name in all of this, right? Like, they didn't want their name in all of this. So in order to avoid that, they said, we're going to offer you a refund. So we should have taken that refund. Right? And then still, maybe if we still wanted to pursue certain people to say, why did you neglect your duty? But it's just that I think the AG just set on a certain direction to go after the minority leader because he was the one that said that authorized the LC. And so that's where the whole angle, you cannot really overlook the angle of the political persecution just based on the evidence that we are all seeing, right?
Yeah, Zita, and the case was really brought late, right? I would have imagined that if you were prosecuting a genuine case of negligence or corruption, it should have happened in your first term. You don't wait till, once you're given a second nod by the Ghanaian. So, for instance, if you are a one-term presidency, does that mean that you have neglected to prosecute people of the previous administration who misconducted themselves? Right. So, but whichever angle you want to take it, go ahead.
I mean, preparing, I was watching some commentary, and people from the MPP quarters are saying, "Oh, it's not a witch hunt. It's not a witch hunt." But I definitely agree with me and Alfred that Ministry of Health need to be looked at more critically than the Finance Ministry in this situation. Also, they did not just offer a refund, spare parts and parts that could be used to fix the ambulances was sent. It's sitting in the Port of Ghana. It's sitting at the Ghana Ports and Harbors Authority, with the ministry saying that they don't have the resources, they don't have the money to clear it. And this brings us to, I don't know if it is incompetency, inefficiency in Ghana's system, but this brings us to what the ordinary person is going through. If an entire ministry can get spare parts to fix an ambulance and get to go and train, their personnel to be able to use this to save lives, and they have it sitting at the ports, just like drugs were sent to Ghana and were sitting at the ports, then we can imagine what the ordinary Ghanaian is going through in terms of business and just being able to conduct business and clearing their goods from the port. And so that is another layer of it, that people need to be prosecuted. Why is it that, spare parts were sent and they are sitting at the Ghana port and they've not been cleared for you to fix these ambulances and train people for these ambulances to be effective in helping people, helping Ghanaians? That is another layer. Who is in charge of making sure that spare parts are cleared? And why is it that an entire ministry and government doesn't have the resources to do that? So, I mean, they are looking at the wrong person, and this have just, exposed the weakness and the entire vindictive nature of this entire prosecution against Ato Forson. There are more people that need to be on the chopping block, especially considering that we have spare parts sitting at the Ghana ports and these ambulances are just, also packed somewhere to rot. Yeah. This is not good for us. Ghana's health system is weak, and we could do with, more resources, especially including ambulance. So whoever is in charge of making sure that the spare parts that were sent needed to be cleared, for the ambulances to be fixed and personnel trained, need to be held accountable.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so this also speaks to the lack of continuity in our system. In other jurisdictions, for instance, you have a Department of Health, right? You have a Ministry of Finance. Sometimes some of these procurements are trans-government. Basically, they would transcend different governments, so that if one government comes in and there's already some process of procuring something in place and there were issues with it, the next government simply fixes it. If there's no clear indication that the person was corrupt or was sort of willfully negligent to a very criminal degree, but it was minor mistakes here and there that could be fixed, such as getting a refund or getting some of the equipment to fit these vehicles to function properly, why not do it? Why do you see it as so distinct from you, such that you have to prosecute those who were in charge at all costs? You understand? So this lack of continuity, the fact that we don't see a ministry as running perpetually, but taking breaks whenever a new government comes into power, is also very problematic. But for me, if there's clear case of corruption, prosecute the case. I mean, asking to refund the money and not to prosecute, I don't think that should be an option. If it's clear case of corruption, severe negligence, go to court and secure a conviction. But let's also see our institutions are continuous and not, bifurcated by different regimes. So, but yeah.
No, a quick question. So that lack of continuity, right? Do you think it's a constitutional thing, right? I don't know, because I see not only this one, but also the Saglami housing project. It's been there, rotten. I'm like, what are we doing? These are all loans. Some of it are loans that we took, and it's just sitting down, rotting. Some of the SHS buildings, the U blocks Muhammad build, is sitting. I'm like, what are we doing? Is it something we can, correct with constitution? Because some of these politicians, all they think is, can I put my name on this, right? So how do we? I know. Maybe it's another discussion for another.
No, I can talk about it a little bit. I think there's a dimension of it that is structural. It's just the manner in which we've set up our system of government that makes a lot of the things so entrenchedly political that you cannot really make them flow on their own. In the US, there's a lot of departments that are literally running independence. You hear the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Transportation or the Secretary of this. The policy influence they have on those ministries are very minimal, right? But when it comes to some of the continuous, or the functions of the department that are almost continuous, they are not really tampered with. They are so ordinary, like something like procurement of ambulance. It's so ordinary and everyday side that it doesn't really have to matter which government is in power. So, and beyond the structural problems, which might be constitutional issues, I think that there's also a general lack of knowledge. I strongly believe that most of our politicians don't understand the system that we are practicing. And they don't understand the politics. I mean, they don't understand democracy as it should be. And so they come in with their own understanding. And it's very partisan understanding of what democracy is. I don't think they really understand what the purpose of the institution that they are actually major players in is supposed to be. They don't know the end goals of democracy. So for me, I think there's a significant amount of knowledge deficiency among the people that we have entrusted our government to in terms of what they are actually practicing. So unless those knowledge gaps are filled, that institutional culture is going to be lacking, because people come in there and just see it as my government is in power and that is it, right? But if we have a perfect understanding and learning of what we are running and what the end goal is, I think even the partisans would go along with it at some point.
I think the key thing though is it's an opportunity. If you continue an existing project, how do you get your cronies paid, right? So I think the reason, I think a key thing, there's all the structure stuff, but I think a key thing is it's an opportunity to give fresh contracts, right? Because if you're continuing the existing contract, right, maybe you have already signed a loan, but you have disbursed up to a certain amount and you say, oh no, I want to do something else, right? Because they want to do something else because there's an opportunity to give their people, get their people in there. Sometimes we hear of some people would even be pushed out. There was recently there was a judgment that was given against Ghana for a company called West Blue because they were doing some stuff at the port. And then instead of letting them continue, the Kenyan government brought in SML, right? And SML is a whole thing on its own, but they brought something else into the fold. And so West Blue now went to sue the government, and then they got awarded a judgment debt the government has to pay. So I think it's, the structural issues exist, but I think the main thing is they're trying to get their people in there. So if I continue with Saglemi, because it's already been awarded to somebody else, why don't go and start a new housing project somewhere and award that to my person so that person can also get the money? Because maybe because of the contractual things, if you break the contract, you might have to pay judgment debt and all of that. So the work is not going out. I can tell the contractor I don't have the money, but I can get money for something else. I can start a new housing project somewhere else, right? Now, I want my name on it, but I also want to award my people. So don't always look at that angle too, right? Because it's a way to make sure that the state is always, in this thing where they're always just offering fresh contract. They're always just offering fresh contract to people that it's of their own choosing, right? This is one of the other things I talk about, this whole idea of the digitalization, is when we talk about we have this Ghana EPS, Ghana Electronic Procurement System, right? It's supposed to be a way for us to make sure that we're not even sole sourcing and that we actually listing things publicly, because a lot of what happens with these contracts, they are not even listed publicly for anybody to see. You see, and then it's been awarded as a sole source to somebody. So one of the things that we've seen is that the Ghana EPS was launched. And when you go on the Ghana EPS, you will see that the big contracts that are making headlines, they are not even listed on there. It will be like the Gary supply to certain school or sugar supply to this. Those are the ones that are listed on there. So we talk about, but this will be talked about as like a digitalization success story because we've launched this thing and it exists. But is it really, really doing what it's supposed to do, right? All these contracts that Honorable Blackwa is exposing, they are not listed on there. They would never be on there. SML contract, those are all never listed on there. You would see the Gary and all those ones will be on there, right? Because again, it's little things. Even that, I'm sure at the district level, there's even cronyism happening there. But at least, so that's the thing. I think to me, it's really the whole idea of like, we need to get our people in there. We need to really award our cronies. Like who who is financing your campaign? And that also comes back to the whole campaign financing too, which, we don't want to talk about. The Electoral Commission doesn't want to deal with, but it's a key thing, right? Who is financing all these politicians as they go out and how they spend all this money? Who is financing them? What are their interests? And how is that going to impact their policy making and award of contract and all of that once they get into power, right? I think it's a key angle.
So I mean, and I guess it ties into the structural issues in terms of the system that we are operating, because the structure is not able to check these things, right? In some places, once you recognize that the procurement process is an avenue to, award cronies, then what are we going to do about it? How are we going to fill that loophole up, say that there wouldn't be any avenue for you to award contracts to your favorites? And so when you come into power, that would discourage you from wanting to abrogate a contract, because even if you do, there's no guarantee that the new award is going to go to somebody that you prefer, right? So we know these things. Unless we restructure the system in a way to check this thing, it would always give politicians an incentive to serve their self-interest. And I always say that, and there's a saying that if we were all angels, there will not be any need for government. So the system of government is always put in place with the mindset that you are going to get the worst people running affairs. So if you are going to get the worst people in society running your affairs, how are you going to build your structure to curtail the greed of such individuals? You're not going to get the most temperate people. You're going to get all kinds of human beings. So I think that is the mindset that we have to approach Ghana's system with. We have the worst people running our countries. How do we curtail their excesses? That's the way I see it.
I have one question for Ghana, if you allow me. So, I mean, Alfred, I've been following you on Twitter. Today it's really good to actually meet you.
Okay. I didn't know he's celebrating on Twitter.
I don't know if it's the same person though.
No, that's him. That's him.
Oh, that's him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know, because I looked at the profile picture, right, and I see your tweets, but I've not followed you, so I just followed you. But I guess you're one of the few people I feel on Twitter, sometimes come true to me as you want the best for the country. So I guess maybe in short words, what do you think that people like us who want the best for the country, what can we do, or what are the way for it? Maybe I'm skewing the discussion, but I just wanted to hear from you. What do you think? Because sometimes you look at the problems and it's like it's a lot. So, do you have any? What do you think? Is it the constitution? What do you think? We can do here.
I think the main thing is to just continue to talk about it, right? Like once you see the issues, in your own small ways, right? Like, because at the end of the day, like every time people talk about interest, right? And they say everybody has interest. There's some people in government that would dismiss you and say, oh, you have an interest. Because to them, like once you criticize the government, it automatically means you belong to the opposition, right? But nobody really is thinking about the interest in terms of wanting Ghana to do well, right? And I think that's a key thing. So to me, I always say that in your own small way, like no matter what, like I think I try to tweet, I try to do a research, I tweet about it, those kinds of things. It's just a way to contribute to the conversation, right? The constitution obviously needs to be reviewed because there's so much power that the president has, right? Like there's so much power for the executive, and that's where the problem is. So you're talking about when they take over, it's basically winner takes all. They take over everything. Like I cannot understand that, Electricity Company of Ghana. I talk about them a lot because the energy sector is something that causes a lot of issues for us. I cannot understand that you register a company, you say it's a company, it's a limited liability company. It's supposed to run by itself, right? But the president is the one that appoints the CEO of ECG. And I'm like, think of it here like EPCO, like I'm in Edmonton, so I use EPCO. But like even in the US, some of the power companies, the president or the state governor is the one that is going to appoint the head of that company, right? So like basically, and then appoint all the board members.
No, yeah.
So corporate governance is not working, right? And we have all these companies, even SNET, like president appoint the president can today sign a letter and say you are gone, and then you are gone. That's just too much power for the president. And I think it's big, but the thing is, the people who would want to like try to address these things, they are the ones that are benefiting from it, right? The political class, they are benefiting from all these things. They are benefiting from the executive having so much power. So why would they even be committed to reviewing and implementing changes to the constitution to make sure that it reduces the amount of power that the president has? I don't know, right? But because now everybody is just like, and I'm sorry, like, like even people in the NDC right now, they're all waiting. They're basically all waiting. Once power switches hands, right? If power switches hands, they're just usually going to do the same thing. So people like you and I, we're going to be fighting the same fight like over and over. Like on Twitter, people call me NDC. Sometimes people call me NPP, depending on what I tweet about, right? Because it's like, it's like, oh yeah, you're talking too much about the government. They're talking too much about the opposition, right? But the president, I think the president has too much power. And so because of that, ECG is causing a lot of losses. Like there's a lot of losses. Like I cannot understand that you will buy power and you lose 30% of it before you even distribute. And so how are you buy power 100 cedis before you even get it to the customer? You've already lost 30 cedis of it. How are you going to be financially sustainable? And so right now, what happens then is that money that the government could be committing to other social sectors, right? The government has to pay for shortfalls in the power sector because otherwise there's going to be doom. So I cannot understand why nobody sees that as an issue that needs to be addressed, right? So if you want ECG to really run as a limited liability company, run as an actual corporation, let it run, leave it from the political thing. But of course, it's a reward for all these people, right? So
so I mean, here CEOs are rewarded based on their output. So how then do you have a CEO who is appointed by the president? What is the incentive? What's his motivation to work hard? I mean, people complain about the bonuses that CEOs make in this country, but this is largely because they come in with strategies to improve the revenues of the organization. So in our case, if you have a government corporation that is supposed to be a profit-oriented organization, yet it is the president that handpicks who is supposed to run that organization, not based on any superior ability to identify the right person, then what is the point? Because I don't know. I've seen the guy who is the director of CEO, but I don't know if he has any long-term experience in the field. You understand? So, why is he the smartest person in Ghana? Why not let these organizations run on their own and pick their own CEOs who would drive them towards the outcome that they desire?
Well, because if you do that, they do that, then they cannot use these companies to do their bidding, right? That's the other thing. So, like CocoaBoard, for example, I could not understand why CocoaBoard would be making losses. Like for so many years, it was making losses because what was happening was like instead of government, like CocoaBoard was doing like road construction and all that stuff, right? It's like, why is CocoaBoard doing all of this stuff?
Yeah.
And so, but again, CocoaBoard boss is appointed by the president. The board is appointed by the president, right? And one of the other things is, one of the things they tried to do was they would try to do, you get this whole idea of the Public Service Commission, right? So the Public Service Commission was supposed to be like the one that would be
hiring agent
people.
Yeah.
Right. But what of course, as Ghana, what they've turned it into is that the president will appoint and then say, oh, go and clear yourself with the Public Service Commission. Okay. So it's almost like it's a white elephant. It's really not.
The commission is appointed by the president, of course.
Yeah, of course. So I don't know how, but I think it would require like significant political will to review the constitution and make some changes, right? Yeah. But I think, as long as the political classes benefit from it, they are not going to commit to doing it. So I think, people like you and I will just have to continue to always complain and always talk about these things. Sometimes Ghana issues people follow. You might feel like you're even a mad person talking about the same thing over and over and over. Because these same issues that we are talking about, if government were to switch hands, we'll be talking about the same issues.
Well, because again, let's hope that if there's a change in government, the Mahama administration would overhaul the system. I mean, not in a way that will bring about a constitutional crisis, but in a very legal way, overhaul the system and bring about these systemic changes that are necessary to move Ghana towards a future that would make life bearable for majority of the citizens.
I
Right?
actually believe he is in a good position to do that, and because he's just one term right now, right? This time will be one term, so it's like I'm going to fix all the things and run away.
Yeah, I
So
mean, yeah,
he can actually do it, but maybe the will, right? The political will to do that.
yeah. I think if there's anybody who has the will to do it, it would be a 4-year Mahama presidency. I mean, it would upset a lot of people within his party who may
Yes.
be interested in using it as an opportunity to, you know, fill their own, if you like, bedrooms with money. But he should be willing to go against all those ambitions and leave a legacy for himself. Right. So, I mean, Zita, if you have something to add, we would give you a few words, but I think I want us to end, right on the hour. So we'll just wrap up. If we'll be speaking and then you've been quiet. So if you have something to add, you are more than welcome. But otherwise,
I mean, no, everything Alfred said and he said is spot on. So I hope that things can work. As we wrap up, for me, I'm just beginning to bemoan my own bloodline and destiny, because I wish my father was part of the political class, and hopefully
okay.
I'll be living a very soft life. Like I said, in my next life, I'm not getting a PhD. I'm a relatively decent looking woman. I should have a man doing all the work for me to be enjoying. But unfortunately, I'm not part of the political class. So I have to put in my work. So that is to conclude on the Agyapadea book. Hopefully, when I'm reincarnated and I'm coming back, God does have mercy on me, and I'm born through a politician, so I can really enjoy the soft life, because
Yeah.
girls are brave. Girls have we've been working too hard.
By the time you get born and you come back again, we would have sealed all the loopholes, new constitution. So you cannot.
Exactly. That future that you are praying for, we are praying for one that will be equitable, such that there won't be any opportunity for people to loot and create generational wealth for their kids. If you want to create generational wealth, work hard and create it with your hands. Don't do that at the expense of other citizens. And that's what happens when you steal from government.
Yeah.
You steal from government coffers, you're essentially taking from other citizens. So, and we didn't have an opportunity to go to the Agyapadea thing, but I mean, what we talked about basically touched on many of those issues, right? David, insane nepotism and awarding contracts to your colleagues. It's the same plot. It might be written in a document, but the plot is still the same.
Yeah.
So, but again, thanks, Alfred, for making an appearance here for us.
Yeah, Alfred, it was good meeting you. I see your tweets. It was really nice meeting you, and your presentation was spot on.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have to stop that political. We just have to say as it is, right? And I think everything you said is what it should be. So, thanks for that. And
Yeah.
and I followed you, so you might I might be seeing more of your tweets
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I thought you were going to ask to follow back.
Oh no.
But but I mean, we're going to have Alfred is good.
I'm not popular like that on Twitter, so it's
Alfred
okay.
will become regular. He and I are on the same WhatsApp platform.
Oh, I see. That's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And recently, some of our colleagues on there are saying that we are wasting our time with these conversations. They have literally, thrown their hands up in despair, and that Ghana is beyond any form of salvaging. And so, these types of conversations are a waste of time. But I still strongly feel there's a hope for, I think, I would say let's be guided by history. If you look at the history of even these advanced countries and what they went through before they eventually got to where they are, I mean, you would say we are not too far off, even though we are far off, right? But we have to keep pushing. Yeah. After I don't know if
I was going to say the same thing. I think, people usually think that this whole advocacy and discussion is like a once in a life, like it's like a one-time thing, or it's a continuous thing.
Yeah.
Because again, like, people, as long as people are trying to game a system, they're always going to come up with different schemes. They're going to come up with different things. So you have to continue to talk about it. Otherwise, like it cannot just be one time, even demonstrations, like people say, you think you do a demonstration and that's it. But no, like, it has to be an ongoing advocacy. It has to be in your own little way, like, in your own little way. If you see something, just talk about it, right? Like, I think, we can try to influence the public conversation that way. As many people as know, right? Like this whole thing about Ghana Can, like so many people were surprised when it's like, no, this is what it is, right? So just understand what it is like that, and then that way that gives you different perspective as you hear all these promises going around. So it was a pleasure being here. Thanks everybody.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll invite you very often here. I mean, so and I'm sure you honor our invitation anytime. But again, I say democracy and its, I mean, whatever fruits we may think that it has are all aspirational. So there's not going to be an end point. Ghana is not going to get to a point where this type of conversation is going to end. There are always going to be issues. We're always going to be seeking for more. We're always going to aspire for more. And so we are going to constantly have conversations about what the future is going to be, right? So, thanks a lot for, I mean, Zita, you guys, my loyal panelist, never taking a break.
Yeah, Zita, how you doing?
Yeah, so
I'm good. The Agyapadea got me rethinking my entire life, and I don't want to curse out my dad, but he's rest in peace.
But next week we'll touch on it a little bit,
Yes.
When you start enjoying, don't forget your friends.
I beg, I've forgotten you already. You think one big man catch me in my corner, are you there? You're not there. So
this platform does not endorse Agyapadea mindset. So we are for justice. We are for justice.
You're a breath of fresh air. Your presentation was just amazing. So hope to see you again on the platform, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So
bye.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and then we'll meet again. Okay. All right, guys.
You let a yum 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 yum. Naya pere, matinaya pese. You let a yum 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 yum. Naya pere, muna kapela, chora kakisa, bayari hele pere, balungana bayre. Satasua, Zadla Sikulgasua.